Hello and welcome back to the channel. So this video is all about motorcycle customization, and this is going to be part of a two-part series where we weigh up the pros and cons of doing custom work on your motorbike. And I'm coming at this from somebody who's sat on both sides of the equation. I've had bikes in my life that have stayed pretty much stock. I've had bikes that have had a couple of small little bits and pieces done, and I've had bikes that I've very much viewed as a blank canvas for customization. And it is a huge amount of fun. In the next video, I will focus on more of the positive side of doing custom work on your bike. But for anybody thinking about starting a project, this video is the reality check. This is the awful truth about some of the stuff you need to think about before you get the spanners out and start ripping your bike apart. So let's jump in and talk about 5 reasons why you might decide to leave those spanners alone. So let's jump in and do it. So number 1 on my list of things to talk about today is value, return on investment, ROI, recuperation. These are all words that you probably want to just turn a blind eye to if you're thinking about investing your hard-earned cash in motorbike customization. Because the horrible truth about doing this stuff is that it is a pretty terrible investment. And it's worth knowing this before you get stuck into a custom motorcycle project. If you're thinking for even a fleeting moment that you're going to see your money again, that maybe you're adding value to your bike and you're going to see it all come back when it comes time to sell, stop right now, scrap those plans. It's very likely not going to happen. Now, of course, there are exceptions. There are perfect storms where you build something and you find just the right buyer for it and everything's great in the world. But the harsh reality is when it comes time to sell your creative vision, and I know people get into custom bikes thinking, I'm never going to sell this one. This is my keeper. Eventually, you'll probably sell it. We all do. But when that time comes, you're going to have a couple of issues to deal with. One, if you want to sell to a motorcycle dealer, they're just going to be pretty brutal about the whole thing. They're going to punch your number plate into a computer alongside your mileage, any service history, things like that. And they'll offer you a market value price for your machine. That's about as black and white as it gets with a lot of dealers. On the private market, you're going to have problems with people generally preferring to buy stock bikes, well-maintained stock bikes, maybe with a few nice OEM upgrades. Those are the ones that people gravitate towards rather than, and I hate to say this, but it's just the way people will look at it, that lash up job that you've got for sale. People just won't trust the work that you've done. They won't trust that it's been done properly. They won't trust that it's all full of quality parts. And they may be thinking themselves, actually, I'd like to do my own work on this bike or, at least do my own thing. I don't want to be dealing with somebody else's mess. And this is why custom bikes tend to take longer to sell and very often fetch less money than bikes that have been left pretty much stock. So that's the awful truth when it comes to return on investment and the recuperation on a custom project. It is pretty much all bad. Now, the only thing you can do to at least stand a fighting chance of getting some of your money back is to have a plan to return your bike to stock. That means keeping all of your factory parts, knowing how they came off and keeping everything organized so you can easily put them back on. Selling off any aftermarket parts separately on eBay. For heaven's sake, do not just bundle the whole thing up and push it onto a dealer because you won't see any of that money back. So get it back to stock, sell your parts off as secondhand parts, try to recuperate some of that revenue there. And I would definitely avoid anything permanent. Any permanent changes to your bike can really hammer it in terms of value, unless, of course, you get lucky and find just the right buyer. But again, that's going to slow down your sales process. And let's face it, when it comes to selling motorbikes, a lot of us are in a bit of a hurry. We've normally got our eyes on something else or want to free up some space in our garage pretty quick. And we just want to do the fastest thing to get it off our hands. So, having to plan to get your bike back to stock, having to spend that extra time looking for a very, very specific buyer are all going to be negative things that are going to maybe make you wish you hadn't bothered in the first place when it comes time to sell. It's the back end of the deal where things get ugly and very often end up costing you a huge amount of money. So best to know it before you get started. So next up on my list of things to think about when it comes to customizing your motorbike is insurance. Now, insurance companies, for me, they're well up there with other hideous things in life, like visiting the dentist, things that tend to hurt you and cost a lot of money at the same time. Insurance isn't my favorite thing in the world. And when it comes to customizing motorbikes, it just gets a whole lot more painful and a whole lot more expensive and a whole lot more complicated. This is because most of the time when you approach an insurance company and you start talking about getting cover, they're going to be looking at a very standard arrangement that has all the standard terminology in it and no doubt makes the assumption that your bike is a standard thing. At some point in that sales process or the onboarding process, they should ask you, have you made any mods to your bike? And depending on what you've done at that point, you may declare what you've done so far, or you might say no, because actually my bike's stock at the moment, but I'm going to do a bunch of stuff in the future. And that's where these kind of standard policies get a little bit tricky, because it's very likely there'll be a clause in your policy that says you have to tell us about every single thing that you change on your bike. And in some policies, there's another horrible clause that says every time you make a change to your policy, there's a fee for doing it, which can get very expensive. Every time you change a tiny thing on your bike, phone your insurance company, sit on hold for 40 minutes, and then have to pay an admin fee for updating the policy, and of course then having an adjustment made to your premium. It can be an absolute nightmare if you've got a project that you're constantly evolving and you want to keep insured and keep riding while you're doing it. The easiest way is potentially to get your bike, get some kind of off-road type insurance, do all the work to it, package it up, and then go and get yourself a special premium calculated on the value of your bike, having done all of your work. That's one way. The kind of middle ground is these policies that I've seen flying around here in the UK, where they have a list of things that you can do to your bike without having to declare it. And sometimes they have a much smaller list of things that you can't do, and they will enable you to do anything else. But it's worth knowing on those policies, at least the ones I've read, they normally have some kind of term in there that says you can do this stuff and we won't invalidate your cover. So that's a box tick. But they also go on to say, we will not pay for this stuff if your bike gets stolen or you make a claim, you have an accident, whatever. We will only ever return that bike back to stock. Market value. They won't commit to paying for a bunch of mods, a bunch of things that you've done to your bike that they don't know about and haven't calculated in the premium. While that might be the best way from a creative standpoint, you've basically got free rein to do whatever you want on the bike, and you can ride off into the jolly sunset knowing that you're not risking invalidating your cover, which is big. But it's worth knowing that a lot of those policies don't actually cover the value of those aftermarket parts. So you've got to think about this if you're getting into customizing a motorbike. Insurance is just pure hell at the best of times. It just gets a lot more complicated when it comes to custom bikes. Okay, so next up on my list of reasons to put those spanners away is the law. Now, this is a global channel, so it's difficult to talk about the law in general terms, but there are rules and regulations in most countries that you need to get to grips with if you're going to start doing custom work on a bike. So talking generally here in the UK, we have a bunch of things that if you do them, you have to inform the DVLA. And that's things like changing the colour, any changes to the frame number and engine capacity, all that kind of stuff. If you make any of those changes, they have to be informed. Outside of that, we have an annual safety check called an MOT, which has to be done on any vehicle over 3 years old. And within that, there's a bunch of regulation that you have to be compliant with. And it's easy for anyone doing modifications on a motorbike to fall foul of that stuff and end up having to go back through another process to put it right. It can be really basic things like the size and position of your number plates. Anything to do with lighting is quite heavily regulated. That could be space in between your indicators, the brightness of color of bulbs, position of lights, all that kind of stuff. It could even be something to do with your exhaust. If you put a ridiculously loud pipe on your bike, although that is a discretionary thing, it might be deemed to be too loud and therefore fail an MOT. So you've got to be aware of what's in that checklist when it comes to the MOT compliance and make sure that you stay on the right side of that. Otherwise, you get a failure and you have to go and correct it. Now, in other countries, it's a whole different kettle of fish. Countries like India, for example, where I think they've got some rules that say you pretty much can't change anything above and beyond factory specification. It's definitely very strict. And other countries like Germany, where you can change things, but everything has to be certificated in the right way. You know, the parts that you put on your bike have to be compliant with the rules and the regulations. You can't just slap on any aftermarket part that you like. So some countries make it a lot more of a kind of bureaucratic process. Other countries just don't allow it. And countries like the UK, you can do certain things, but you know, your vehicle's going to be tested and you have to be compliant. The overarching statement here when it comes to law is just get to know your local laws and make a decision in terms of whether or not it's worth getting stuck into a custom project, because very often you might decide it's just another thing that you don't want to have to deal with in life and leave your bike standard. So next up on my list, we're going to talk about warranties quickly. And I get asked about warranties all the time on my channel, especially because my Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, when I started modifying that, it was a brand new bike. And a lot of people are like, how is this going to affect your warranty? So again, a bit like the law stuff, you know, being a global channel, warranty rules and consumer protection is different all over the world. So again, it's a case of kind of checking with your local rules on that kind of stuff. Here in the UK, we actually get a bit of a sore deal when it comes to motorcycle warranties. Now, a while ago, there was a case where all dealers, whether they were selling cars or motorbikes, were arguing that, you know, you must take your vehicle to a franchised dealer or an approved dealer to get your servicing done, and you can only use OEM parts. Now, the car guys managed to successfully argue an exemption to that and are now able to get their vehicle serviced wherever they like, and that will not legally affect their warranty. Unfortunately, us motorcyclists have not been afforded the same exemption. So your dealer is legally able to say that we're going to invalidate your warranty based on evidence of work on the bike or application of aftermarket parts that may or may not have had a direct impact on the issue. So they can literally turn around and go, well, you've changed something on your bike, somebody else has had at this, we're now not covering it. Now, most dealers, I think, will probably take a view on it in terms of what you've done and what the issue is. So if you've changed your handlebars and you've got a problem with your engine, it would be pretty harsh of them to throw that at you. But if you've gone ahead and changed the exhaust and stuck a power commander on, had it remapped, and your engine blows up, yeah, you're going to be in pretty hot water there. So it's definitely worth thinking about, especially if you've got a new bike, an expensive bike, a high performance bike, and ultimately you're paying for a warranty. It's somewhere in that bundle of cash that you handed over for the bike. There's money in there to cover that warranty. It's been calculated in. So you're effectively paying for it. You've got to ask yourself the question, are you happy with effectively putting that on the line to do your own work on the bike or to add non-OEM parts during that period of cover? Because as I said, in the strict eyes of the law, you will, in the UK at least, invalidate that warranty. But of course, different countries around the world all have different consumer protection. But it's worth getting to know what that is and making a decision based on that. Okay, so next up on my list of 5 things to think about before you get stuck into a custom project, we've got to talk about safety, because it is something that, for obvious reasons, you've got to be aware of, and you've got to be really careful every time you start taking a spanner to your bike and doing stuff. Now, there is a very big difference, I think, between doing kind of standard work on a bike, working in line with the workshop manual, doing basic maintenance, basic servicing, but very much staying in line with the factory guidelines and factory specifications. There's a kind of difference between doing that and the world of customization. I would say that working in line with the factory manual is kind of level 1. Custom work is next level. And the reason for that is mainly because you're kind of off script. You've no longer got a recipe to follow. You are out there on your own, potentially doing things to your bike that hasn't been documented before. It's not going to be very easy to get advice on it. So you're going to need to have the basics in your head to safely do it. And very often you might find yourself changing something that could have a knock-on effect to other areas of the machine. So say, for example, you decide you're going to change your brake calipers. Do you have the understanding of the bigger system to be able to make that call and ultimately bring in the right components that are going to be compatible with everything? Because you've got the brake master cylinder in there, you've got other sensors, you've got the ABS, you've got the hoses, you've got all these things to think about and understand in order to make the right judgment call on changing that one component. It's complicated and it's not always documented. I would say anybody who hasn't got the background in kind of motorcycle engineering or maintenance should be very careful when it comes to doing custom work on their bikes. It's not to say you can't do it, but I would definitely surround yourself with people who can help you out, people that you trust, people who've got a lot of experience, who can check your work, give you advice, and guide you through some of the more complicated steps. Because the last thing you want to do is come bowling into a corner only to figure out that, in fact, those calipers weren't compatible with your brake master cylinder and you've got no pressure in your system and all kind of bad things are about to ensue. It can happen. So it's worth being aware of it. It's worth knowing your limits. I certainly don't know everything, so I am constantly asking people. I've got a network of people I know and trust, and I can get good advice. I would also argue that YouTube isn't always the best place to get that advice. It is a wonderful resource for certain things and for self-learning and all that kind of stuff, but you just got to be really careful with some of the channels out there that don't always give you the very best of advice, although the content looks slick. The presentation is well polished, but sometimes the actual content can be a little bit sketchy. So the overarching advice is get lots of advice from lots of different places, consolidate it in your own mind, check everything as many times as you can, and just arm yourself with the basics so that you can make a call on whether or not something just feels sketchy or not. But obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that. But safety is definitely something that you need to consider, need to be aware of, and need to plan for if you're thinking about getting stuck into a custom project. So there you go. Now, I hope this hasn't put you off, because believe it or not, there are a load of really positive things with getting stuck into a custom project. Those I'll talk about in the next video, and we'll talk about some of the slightly cheerier side of doing this stuff. But I wanted to make sure that the first video was a little bit of a reality check, a little bit of a overview of some of the complexity surrounding motorbike customization, just to give you a feel for the challenges that you're going to have to overcome. So that's it for now. Stick around for the next one. You can hit subscribe if you want so that you catch that when it drops. And until the next one, ride safe.